It all began when my aunt approached me with an anxious, unexpected plea. "Arsalan, my dear nephew, would you be willing to sleep over at my house tonight? The place is entirely empty, and an overwhelming sense of dread has taken over me." Noticing the genuine fear in her voice, I was taken aback and asked, "What happened, Auntie? Why are you so frightened?" She sighed heavily, laying out the circumstances. "Your uncle is currently away on an extended business trip. Our eldest is staying at his university dorm, and we sent our youngest daughter to stay with her grandmother. This leaves only me and my 4-year-old son in this massive, empty house. To make matters worse, I noticed some rather suspicious characters loitering around the street after nightfall. I am simply worried sick." Overhearing this, my mother immediately stepped in to encourage me, saying, "Arsalan, don't think twice. Go with your aunt right now. Give her some peace of mind, lend her your courage, and keep her safe. Stay by her side through the night." I offered no resistance and readily agreed. Quickly gathering a few essentials, I packed my pajamas, a toothbrush, and the novel I had been reading. My aunt gratefully locked her hand in mine as we walked back to her place. Along the way, she gazed at me with deep affection and murmured, "You've grown into such a fine young man, Arsalan. Just having you around makes my heart feel so much lighter." The moment we stepped inside, she bolted the heavy front door, completely shutting out the outside world, and led me to the master bedroom. There, her little boy was already fast asleep, lost in pleasant dreams. Sitting me down on the edge of the large mattress, she whispered, "You'll be sleeping right here next to me tonight." We then headed to the kitchen to fix a quick dinner. Once we finished eating, I settled in comfortably, opening my book to lose myself in the chapters while my aunt quietly wrapped up the rest of her evening chores. As the night finally began to fade and the first hints of dawn teased the horizon, she tried to gently wake me, though I had already fallen into a deep, peaceful slumber wrapped in her arms. "Arsalan, wake up, sweetheart. Morning is breaking," she whispered tenderly in my ear. Her voice was still thick with the intimacy of the night. She pressed a soft kiss to my cheek and murmured gratefully, "You gave me so much strength tonight. We are closer now than we have ever been." A beautiful, slightly shy smile danced on her lips as she gave me one final embrace. "Let's keep this beautiful night as our special, little secret forever." I nodded, smiling back. She then got up to brew a pot of fresh tea, which we shared in the quiet solace of the early morning. A little while later, she woke her son, who remained completely oblivious to the night's events. As I gathered my things to head home, my aunt slipped behind me, her lips brushing my ear one last time. "Make sure to come over the very next time your uncle travels," she whispered. I smiled warmly and replied, "I absolutely will." Walking home under the morning sun, I realized that her sudden loneliness had unlocked the door to a dazzling, secret world. Now, whenever I lie down in my own bed, I find myself deeply missing her. And I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that she is sitting in her quiet house, missing me just as much. That night became a permanent, unforgettable memory for us, both as the sun rose high into the sky. "Arsalan, you are so incredibly close right now." As the night deepened, her embrace grew fierce and possessive. Her sheer gown, thoroughly soaked from her wet hair, left nothing to the imagination. Locking her eyes onto mine, a mysterious, alluring spark ignited within them. "Don't be timid, my boy," she whispered against my lips. "I am your aunt, and I will guide you through everything tonight." Her skin felt like fire, and she continuously sought a deeper connection. As my hand caressed her cheek, a radiant smile spread across her face. She pulled me down into a tender, passionate kiss, her fingers mapping out every inch of my skin. Giving in completely, I matched her passion, wrapping myself around her as she sighed, "Oh, Arsalan, you are wonderful." An absolute, heavy silence enveloped the house, broken only by the synchronized rhythm of our deep, ragged breathing. Leaning into my ear, she confessed, "From this night onward, you are my sole confidant." I pulled her closer, resting my head against her chest as her soft hips aligned perfectly with mine. We completely dissolved into one another, leaving the rest of the world behind. The hours moved in a slow, intoxicating blur. I was hyper-aware of her fingers moving sensually across my skin and her voice filled with a raw, undeniable passion as she repeatedly called me her king. Outside, the night was perfectly still, but inside the bedroom, a warm, passionate storm raged on. She revealed a side of intimacy I had never known, teaching me exactly how to please a woman, and the intoxicating warmth of her body completely captivated my soul. "Arsalan, please, don't let go of me tonight." When a third mysterious sound echoed from the yard, she pulled me so close that all distance between us dissolved entirely. The barrier of her sheer nightgown and my thin sheet melted away as our skin warmed to one another. The atmosphere in the room completely shifted. Her damp tresses fell across my face, and her scorching breath grazed my neck. "Don't be afraid, Annie. I got you," I whispered. She opened her eyes, looking deeply into mine with a sudden, intoxicating softness. "You're so good to me, Arsalan. I truly don't know how I would have survived this night without you." With those words, she casually draped her leg over mine, pulling us into an even tighter embrace. The dim, amber glow of the night light cast beautiful shadows across her feminine form, making her look utterly enchanting. I tried to look away out of respect, but she gently took my hand, placing my palm directly over her heart. "Feel it," she murmured. "Look how wildly it's beating." Beneath my fingers, her heart was indeed racing. Trying to soothe her, I began to run my fingers through her silky, wet hair. She closed her eyes with a sigh of relief, burying her face into the crook of my neck. Gradually, the world outside fell completely silent, but she had no intention of releasing me. If anything, her body temperature seemed to rise, radiating an intense warmth. I asked in a low whisper if she was still frightened, to which she replied softly, "The fear of the outside has passed, but please keep holding me." She pulled me down with a quiet intensity, aligning our bodies perfectly. Her breath fanned against my throat while her delicate fingers began to trace slow, deliberate lines along my waist. Unable to resist, I tightened my grip around her. Breathing out my name, she whispered. Relieved by the absurdity of the situation, a shared laughter broke the tension between us. My aunt seemed to regain a bit of her composure, yet her desire to stay anchored to my side remained unchanged. Back in the stifling warmth of the bedroom, we settled into bed once more. The heat and adrenaline had left me completely drenched in sweat. I suggested, "Auntie, there's clearly nothing out there to fear anymore. Why don't we open the door to let some air in?" But she shook her head instantly, her eyes wide with lingering anxiety. "No, please, my son. Keep it locked tight until morning." Rising from the bed, she went to the wardrobe and pulled out a translucent, whisper-light cotton sheet, handing it to me to use instead of the heavy duvet. She murmured that it might bring some relief from the oppressive heat. As I wrapped myself in the thin fabric, she added, "I'm going to take a quick shower to cool down." When she emerged from the bathroom moments later, she was wearing an exquisitely delicate, white silk nightgown, a piece undoubtedly gifted to her by my uncle. The fabric was practically weightless, and because it was slightly damp from the water dripping from her long, wet hair, it clung seamlessly to her body, tracing every beautiful curve and contour of her silhouette. Intimidated and captivated by the sight, I bashfully averted my gaze. She gracefully slid onto the mattress, gently moving her sleeping son closer to the far edge to create space. Positioned right in the middle, she lay next to me. We left the bedside lamp glowing, as the lingering fear of the dark kept her from turning it off. Though her eyes were closed, her hand found mine, resting tenderly on my arm. Suddenly, another faint noise drifted in from the outside. Without hesitation, my aunt turned over, pressing the entire length of her body flush against mine. Instinctively, I pulled her into my arms, offering her a sanctuary of safety. In a breathless, barely audible whisper, she pleaded. A short while later, she returned and asked if I had reached a stopping point. I nodded and closed the book, prompting her to turn on the television as a distraction. By then, the clock on the wall read 11 past midnight. We sat close together, watching the screen in comfortable silence. Before long, she checked on her daughter one last time, ensuring she was sound asleep before turning to me to say it was time for us to rest as well. I dutifully climbed under the sheets. My aunt walked over to the bedroom door, shutting it firmly and locking the internal latch. Surprised by this, I asked why she was sealing the room, to which she replied, "I'm terrified of the night drafts creeping in from the streets." I tried to reason with her, pointing out how incredibly humid and hot the room felt, but she flatly refused, preferring the safety of the enclosed space. A little while later, a peculiar, unsettling rustling sound echoed from the dark courtyard outside. My aunt reacted instantly, spinning around and throwing her arms around me. I could feel her slender frame trembling against mine. Try to soothe her nerves, I whispered softly, "Shoo, it's all right. Don't worry, I'm right here with you." Pressing herself even closer, she breathed, "You are my protector, my king. Promise me you won't leave me alone tonight." When a second strange noise echoed from the yard, her grip became tighter, almost desperate. Her breathing grew shallow and rapid, and her soft form was crushed tightly against my chest. Realizing I needed to take control, I told her I was going to step outside to investigate. At first, she desperately held me back, but seeing my resolve, she decided to come along. Arming herself with a long wooden stick, she gripped my hand with immense strength. We cautiously cracked the door open and peered into the moonlight, only to find a stray cat sitting on the fence. Sensing our presence, the feline leaped down and darted into the shadows.